Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this ColACP Training of Trainers course. This sequence is on ColACP's interactive training activities. In this sequence, we are going to cover 4 points. 1. Discovering interactive training. 2. The role of the facilitator. 3. Carrying out ColACP training activities. And 4. Let's watch, warm up and interactive training. Discovering interactive training. Popularization objectives. Learn by habit or experience. Some activities have never been the subject of constructed learning. How to protect oneself when using toxic products. How should we go about reducing health risks when handling fruit and vegetables? How can we protect ourselves from COVID-19? How can we prevent a whole group of producers from being held responsible when a lot of vegetables is rejected because of one of them has exceeded the standard? If the objective is to respect the rules or standard for the market access, we must focus on the objective why, on good practice how, on how we behave, what attitude to adopt from day to day. Scientists use their own language and manipulate concepts so well integrated that they sometimes don't think to explain them. As in any specialization or profession, they develop a jargon that makes communication between themselves more effective, but is opaque to outsiders. The principle of popularization arises from the need for dialogue between experts, which is the scientific community, and citizens, so that people can understand the messages and content according to their level of qualification and knowledge. We have seen this during the COVID-19 pandemic, when many experts popularized their knowledge on TV to influence citizens' behavior. Popularization gives everyone the opportunity to gain certain knowledge, enabling them to better perceive risk, for example, or to evolve in their daily environment with full knowledge and awareness. Never assume that it's too complicated to explain or it's out of their reach, etc. There is no such thing as a stupid audience. There are only clumsy trainers, or worse, arrogant trainers, unable to reach their audience. Although often this arrogance actually masks ignorance and reveals personal limits. My teacher used to say, "What is easy to conceive is clearly and easily expressed." In our context, the main purpose of extension is to support the staff companies or small producers or public service agents to adopt appropriate professional behavior. At ColACP, extension is the keystone of capacity building. Interactive training. Who is it for? The interactive training techniques are intended for company managers who need to raise the awareness of their staff or of producers working with their company on various technical subjects that are sometimes complex to understand: hygiene measures, health risks, crop protection principles, the importance of traceability. And also for extension workers, other training providers, supervisors, or professional organizations or producer groups, extension staff, service providers, teachers, etc., who request capacity building. The interactive training techniques are used by managers and extension workers to raise awareness among small-scale producers who produce fruit and vegetables for export and who work in collaboration with one or more companies. For training workers within companies, training courses are organized at specific times of the season, week and day, depending on the cultural calendar and the availability of the managers who serve as facilitators. Interactive training techniques are tools that you must learn to use correctly so that you in turn can train internal trainers or supervisors who work in direct contact with producers or staff. At ColACP, we talk about cascading training. The expert trains the manager, who then trains their assistants, who then trains the staff. What is interactive training? Interactive training comprises activities on a given subject, designated to enable the target audience to understand, in a simple and pictorial way, the good practices to be followed throughout the production process, so that harvested and packaged products comply with the standards and the regulatory requirements. Through active and participatory learning using simulations, we aim to use participants' own experience to raise questions and interest in the subject addressed. Remember the founding principles of adult learning presented earlier. Interactive training techniques and tools are well adapted to this type of training. Each sequence comprises a series of activities, alternating moments of warm-up, discovery and observation, reflection, questions and answers, and finally of synthesis by the facilitator. The interactive training activities cover a variety of themes. They can be carried out independently of each other, but they can complement each other. Available resources and tools. COLA-ICP has produced teaching manuals for each topic covered: hygiene measures, health risks, crop protection principles, the importance of traceability, cocoa and coffee production, fruit fly control, etc. They group together all the educational activities for the topic and include the following. Context. This short text makes it easier for the facilitator to see how to approach the subject discussed during the activity. Interest. A series of questions or elements that will arouse participants' interest in the activity. Learning objectives. The objectives for what participants should be able to understand or to do at the end of the activity. Method. The principle of the method is presented to participants so that they can place the progress of the various activities in the sequence. Materials. Details of all the materials needed to carry out the interactive training, which must be collected, completed if necessary, and checked before starting the activity. Facilitator's guide. This follows the activity through to the synthesis and conclusion of the sequencing. Debriefing grids and evaluation grids are provided to enable discussions with the facilitators on their performance at the end of the training, and for their evaluation both during the exercises and at the end of the training. A wide variety of methods are used in these interactive training activities. Analogy, the use of salt and flakes, etc. Flip charts, game of errors with a puzzle, role-playing, e.g. wearing the PPE, demonstrations such as sprayer adjustment, experience such as wearing a mask. The role of the facilitator. What is a facilitator? The challenge of interactive training is to find together the reasons for good behavior. To decide on these answers, we must concretely test their effectiveness and compare them with the previous experience. The emphasis is therefore on practical application, the concrete use of materials and experiments by the participants. The aim is training through shared activity, not making a presentation. Facilitators manage activities and debates. They know where they are going, what they want to highlight, and what learning they want participants to take away from the experience. Pay particular attention to the questions. They seek to capture tangible facts observed during the activities, not feelings or impressions about the activity that just have taken place. Keep the momentum going. They stand in the center of the space. Speak loudly and clearly. Smile and keep up the group's energy through their voice and physical presence. Are positive about what participants produce. They always try to build on the participants' contributions and highlight the good practices identified by the group, as well as correcting, if necessary, if there is a misinterpretation, especially during the summary. So what is the difference between a trainer and a facilitator? A facilitator, unlike a trainer, doesn't have to answer questions about the purpose and objectives, the content, the organization of the activities, etc., since everything is described and set out in the teaching manual. On the contrary, facilitators should follow the teaching manual as faithfully as possible if they want to obtain the expected effect of the activity. That said, the facilitator is not a parrot. They have their share of interpretation and make personal contributions, provided they don't hinder the expected discovery or analogy effect or participants' understanding of the messages. If facilitators have not properly assimilated the instructions for the activity, for example, if there were no rehearsals before taking the stage in front of a group, the effect can be missed and the activity falls flat. For example, the participants can't make links between the activities or understand the analogy that supports the key messages. Roles of the facilitator. As a reminder, as trainers, you will be required to train facilitators, middle managers, company technicians, extension workers, members of professional organizations, heads of surveillance or inspection services, etc. You must enable facilitators to develop the skills to master the CEOM technique, to introduce each interactive training. Mastering this introductory sequence is even more important than lecturing. Apply the activity methods described in the teaching manual in order to obtain the desired effects from the participants. Clearly set out the context of each interactive activity. At the beginning and during the course of each activity, stimulate participants' interest in the subject, if possible, based on their professional experience, to their point of view, their reactions on the subject. Clearly present the instructions during an activity and make sure they are followed. Motivate the participants to take an active part. Arouse their desire to ask questions, make them react. Work through the different activities of the interactive training, including questions and answers, and make a summary at the end of the activity. Assess participants' understanding of key messages. Carrying out COLECP training activities. Organizing interactive training activities. The logistical organization of an activity is a critical success factor for two main reasons. One, the quality of the preparation and logistics will be directly linked to the image they give of the training itself and of respect for the participants. The setting in which participants are welcomed will also give an impression of the consideration given to them. Two, the physical conditions in which an activity takes place will have a concrete effect on participants' understanding and retention of the content. If there is any doubt about the quality of the media, it is strongly recommended that facilitators test their interactive training techniques and possibly renew the materials. Likewise, when the interactive training activities are finished, facilitators should take care to keep or retain the materials in good condition and keep COLECP informed. This will ensure that used, damaged, or missing educational materials, including consumables such as chemicals, are replaced. Introducing and running an activity. As for any other training sequence, it is essential that facilitators take special care to prepare an introduction to each of the interactive training activities. It is essential for the participants to understand the context of the activity, the objectives, and the organization of the activity. Much of the effect achieved will depend on this introduction. It will also greatly facilitate participants' understanding of the instructions for the activity. That is why you will find at the start of each teaching manual information on contextual elements. This should be used by the facilitator as a guide for the introduction of the subject and to engage participants' interest in relation to their personal practice. Participants' interest in the subject being discussed. Objectives, that is, the guidelines or good practices to be followed. The method that to be used for the activities, including the duration of each part. SIOM, that is, subject, interest, objective, method, will be used as a guide to introduce the activity. SIOM allows facilitators to remember how to structure their introduction in a few minutes, to be clear and concise, and to make it clear to participants what they are going to do together. Tips for organizing activities. Some interactive training activities can take place indoors, others can only take place outdoors. Some others require an outdoor phase followed by an indoor phase. The room or workspace should be prepared according to the arrangements required for each activity and should be large enough to accommodate the group of participants easily. Whether indoors or outdoors, the regulation of the group is very important. Organizing sessions in companies. By combining several activities, sequences, for example, one per day, it is possible to build a small internal training program on a theme, such as on hygiene, product traceability, etc. The awareness raising and/or training program using the interactive activities must be composed according to the following criteria. 1. Interactive training activities can take place outdoors, in the field, or on the station. There is no question of locking participants in a room to listen to a lesson. 2. Target audience. Practices vary, but it is common to involve different people at each stage of the production or transformation process. So the activities should be chosen according to what the participants actually do as part of their daily work. There is no point of talking about spraying to a parking station staff. Examples of participants may include small producers who supply their products to the company, crop surveillance officers or crop scouts, those applying plant protection products, harvesters, drivers and carriers, chefs in a parking station, workers or handlers in a parking station. Each theme will have a specific audience. Each of the interactive training activities can be used with a group of up to 20 people. 3. Time available. Some interactive trainings must be carried out at the right time. For example, talking about fruit fly damage, monitoring and control is possible only when there is fruit ripe on the trees. Similarly, harvest hygiene instructions should be given when the harvest begins, not at the end of the season. When the session is in full swing, time is running out to meet deadlines. This is why interactive training activities are short, to be produced at the most opportune time. 4. Characteristics of the company. Some companies manage all stages of a process with their staff. Others use only seasonal workers. Others are made up of a group of small producers, and others only handle packaging. These specificities require adaptation. Let's watch warm-up and interactive training. In the following examples, we will see two activities. 1. A short warm-up or icebreaker sequence, which can be done outdoor, field, or at the station. And 2. A longer activity, which is part of a series on hygiene. Warm-up or icebreaker. This little sequence creates a framework that encourages everyone to take part by creating cohesion within the group, establishes a relaxed relationship between group members with the facilitators, encourages participants to speak up to the group, can take very different forms depending on the country and the local culture. Storytelling, anecdotes, water games, humor. Let's take a look at some photos taken in training. Interactive training on hygiene. These images were taken in Kenya by one of Kolesipi's trainers, Mr. Martin de Ruyter. Martin has made a series of videos that allow us to visualize the implementation of our interactive training activities. Let's take a look at this activity step by step.